Hello everyone. Today we will move on to the next topic. It's on the introduction to phase equilibrium. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the author of the slides, Ma'am Rowie Carpio. So I am guessing that in your physical chemistry, you also have a topic on phase equilibrium, but our approach here is uh, using the book of Smith and Vanes, Chemical Engineering Thermodynamics. Next, we will discuss the learning objectives for this topic. The first one is to state and apply the phase rule and Duhem's theorem for non-reacting system. Identify the dew point and bubble point surfaces, the critical locus, and pure species vapor pressure curves that make up a vapor-liquid phase envelope when presented in a PTXY diagram. Interpret and apply the PXY, TXY, PT, and YX diagrams representing vapor-liquid equilibrium of binary mixtures, and sketch the path of an evaporation or condensation process on the PXY or TXY diagram. So in this topic, we will discuss a lot of diagrams, and we will focus on the PTXY uh, diagrams and the derived diagrams from the PTXY diagram. So from the PTXY, we can derive the PXY, TXY, PT, and YX diagrams. So PTXY is a 3D diagram, and the rest of the diagrams can be represented in 2 dimension. Let's move on to the nature of equilibrium. I'm sure you're familiar with the equilibrium state. I mean, we have discussed this before, and I'm sure in your other subjects you also have discussed what is equilibrium. So just to recall, equilibrium is a condition in which no changes occur in the macroscopic properties of an isolated system. And at equilibrium, all the potentials, the chemical potential, that may cause the changes are balanced. So there's no driving force for any change in the system. And in an isolated system with liquid and vapor phases in intimate contact, they eventually reach a final state where there is no tendency to change, right, within the system. And therefore, the temperature, pressure, and compositions, the TP and if we have a binary system, the XY compositions reach their final values and they remain fixed. And at that point, we can say that the system is equilibrium. Okay, so even if in the macroscopic level, uh, there's no change that observable at the microscopic level, it's actually not static because the molecules pass from one phase to the other. So if we have two phases, liquid and vapor, the molecules in the liquid are not necessarily the same molecules a few seconds ago. So they interchange, but the rate of change or average rate of passage of the molecules is the same in both directions. So I hope you understand that. And if we get the net interface transfer, there's no, it's zero. There's no net interface transfer. So at the macroscopic level, there's no observable change. But if we zoom in into the microscopic level, of course, it's not static. They are interchanging, but the rate of change is, or there's no net interface transfer of the material. Okay. So before we proceed, um, let's discuss the importance of phase equilibria of this topic. Why are we studying phase equilibrium? So again, just as we discussed in this slide, the phase equilibrium describes the conditions under which the different phases can coexist in a stable, unchanging state. And for us chemical, or for you, future chemical engineers, it's important for you to understand and analyze the processes that involve phase changes, such as, for example, you have melting, vaporization, condensation, sublimation, because in studying this phase equilibrium, you can um, observe or the behavior of some substances at various conditions and develop the ability to predict phase changes, okay, which is important in our engineering applications. Okay, such applications, for example, we have the distillation process. Phase equilibrium is important for designing and optimizing distillation columns used in separating uh, liquid mixtures. And we also have chemical processes, because many industrial chemical processes involve phase changes, and therefore phase equilibrium data is important for designing and operating these processes efficiently. Okay, so we move on to the phase rule and Doom's theorem. So before, I'm sure in Che 142 you recall the phase rule. For a non-reacting system, the degrees of freedom is 2 minus the number of phases plus the number of chemical species in the system. So um, I hope that you remember this. To recall how the phase rule was derived, let's look at this expression here. The 2 would refer to the pressure and temperature that needs to be fixed, and then n minus 1 refers to the number of chemical species uh, minus 1. So why n minus 1? It's because, let me go to the book right here. Only n minus 1 mole fractions are required, because if we sum all of the mole fractions is equal to 1. So we only need n minus 1 mole fractions. And the last one is we multiply that n minus 1 with the number of phases. So expanding this expression would give us the phase rule. So I hope you remember that. Next, we introduce another theorem, the Duhem's theorem. And it's similar to the phase rule, and it applies to the extensive state of a closed system. Right. So if we consider both extensive and intensive state, so I hope you remember um, the definition of an intensive and versus an extensive state. Extensive properties or state vary with the amount of the substance, while intensive properties or state does not vary, or does not depend on the amount of the substance. So if we consider both the extensive and intensive state of the system and we fix that, the state of the system is said to be completely determined, or we can completely describe the state of the system. So therefore, it's not only characterized by the intensive phase rule variables, which is this one, but also the extensive variables. So the phase rule is derived from the intensive variables. But according to Duhm's theorem, we also have to consider the number of phases, okay, by number of phases, extensive variables represented by the masses or mole numbers of the phases. Okay? And therefore, that if you will remember, if we to calculate the degrees of freedom, we subtract the number of equations from the number of variables. So first we count the total number of variables. Okay, so when we count the total of the number of variables, we consider the number of intensive, so this one, okay, where we derive the phase rule, plus the extensive variables are represented by this one, um, and then we expand by this expression to get 2 plus n by total number of variables. Okay. Next, we count the number of equations. Okay. For a closed system with specified amounts of chemical species present, a material balance equation can be written for each of the n chemical species involved, providing n more equations. Okay. So therefore, for the number of equations would equal to pi minus 1 multiplied by the n chemical species. Okay? So therefore, okay, so let me repeat that. So we have equations for the um n n multiplied by pi minus 1 phase equilibrium equations, and we also have material balances for each of the chemical species for a total number of pi times n equations. Alright? So this is the total number of equations, and going back to the previous slide, this is the total number of variables. To get the degrees of freedom, we subtract pi minus n from the total number of variables, and simplifying would give us 2, would give us just the number 2. And this is the Duhem's theorem. Duhem's theorem states that for any closed system formed from known amounts of prescribed chemical species, the equilibrium state is completely determined when any two independent variables are fixed. Because based from our derivation, we derive that the degrees of freedom is 2. Okay. So we just need to fix any two independent variables. Since in our consideration we included both intensive and extensive variables, so the two independent variables that can be fixed can either be intensive or extensive. But the number of the independent intensive variable is given by the phase rule. So for example, according to phase rule, the degrees of freedom is 1, then at least one of the two variables must be extensive. If the degrees of freedom is 0, then both of the two variables must be extensive. Okay, so I hope that is clear. This is the Duhem's theorem. So another way to state the Duhem's theorem, it states that two variables are sufficient to specify the state of the system. Given the values of the system's thermodynamic variables in some initial state, specifying the change in some pair of variables is sufficient to determine the change in the remaining variables, so that the system's thermodynamic variables in the are in the final state. Okay. So we now move on to the excuse me, qualitative behavior of vapor-liquid equilibrium. Here we will begin describing the diagrams that we have um, pointed out in the learning objectives. So if we have a vapor liquid, so let's focus our attention on vapor liquid equilibrium, or for in short, we call it VLE. So in vapor liquid equilibrium, there's coexistence of both liquid and vapor phases. Because of limitations in graphing, okay, we limit our system to two chemical species with single liquid phase. Okay. Um, because if we want more to discuss more species, it will be very difficult to imagine that or to draw that visually. So for now, let's settle on a in two chemical species or a binary system. If we have two chemical species, that means our N is equal to 2. Using the phase rule, then 2 plus 2 minus pi, or the number of phases, is 4 minus pi. Because there must be at least one phase, okay, so that's the limit. There should be at least one phase, so pi equal to, let's set pi equal to n. Therefore, the maximum number of variables that must be fixed to that must be specified to fix the intensive state of the system is 3, which are the pressure, temperature, okay, and the mole or mass fraction. Okay, 1 mole or mass fraction. When I say one, I'm referring to one of the species, not the quantity one. Okay? And this would give us the fixing that PT and X, okay, would give rise to the PTXY diagram for vapor liquid equilibrium. That's why I told you that um, we will be focusing on a binary system, because at least when we just deal with two chemical species, we can represent them in 3D, okay? But more would be uh, difficult to add another dimension. So let's focus our attention on the PTXY for species 1 and 2 of a binary system. Okay? So this is the 3D diagram of the PTXY vapor liquid equilibrium. It consists of surfaces that contain the equilibrium states of saturated vapor and saturated liquid. If we assume that, or we set that species 1 is the lighter or more volatile species. Um, so on our y-axis, we have the pressure, and on the um, x-axis, we have the temperature. Okay, right here. And on the z-axis, we have the composition xy. Okay. If we are um, talking about the high pressure region, what is the state of the system? What can we expect? Okay, so we can expect that the liquid uh, phase is on top, and at lower pressure, we can expect that the vapor phase is at the bottom. Okay, so therefore, the lower surface, okay, so the lower surface, the bottom here, would contain the saturated vapor states. It's the PTY1, because Y is what we designate for the vapor. Okay, so the lower surface is the PTY surface, and the upper surface, because it has the higher pressure, it's the PTX, or saturated liquid surface. Okay. Okay, let me zoom in so you can see. So it's difficult to point out, but just imagine this is the upper surface and the lower surface, the bottom. Okay. And these surfaces, they intersect along the lines RKAC1 and UBAC1. So where are those lines? Here. So the surface right here would intersect the upper surface would intersect with the lower surface along this line RKAC1 and along this line UBHC2. Okay, and these lines represent the vapor pressure versus temperature curves for the pure species. So why? Because these lines are along the surface where the composition is either 0 or 1 for X. So if the composition is 1, then it means it's a pure species 1, right? Because our composition is based on the chemical species 1. Okay, so this is a pure species 1, and then at 0, it means it's a pure species 2. And therefore, um, they represent the vapor pressure temperature curves for the pure species 1 and 2. So at 0 and 1. So these lines are KA C1 and the line UBHC2. So this is for UBHC2 is for chemical species pure species 2. RKAC1 is for pure species 1. Okay, what else can we observe from this 3D diagram? As you can see here, there's a point C2 and C1. So what does it represent? It represents the critical points. For pure species 1, that's C1, critical point for pure species 1. And for C2, uh, this point where where 1 x1 is 0. So this is the point for critical point for pure species 2. Um, okay, and then so if this is the critical points of the pure species, then the critical points of the various mixtures of the two species would be determined by this curve right here between C1 and C2. Okay? And we call that this curve right here the critical locus. If you will remember what is a critical point, it is where um the vapor and liquid phases in equilibrium become identical. Okay, so we cannot anymore distinguish between the vapor and liquid phase. That is the critical point. So it means that the surface right here, okay, at the top and the surface at the bottom would meet at this critical locus because so they would close here because it is where the vapor and liquid phases are not indistinguishable are I mean they are indistinguishable from each other. They're not distinguishable. So there's a close the two surfaces close right here, but as you can see here they are there's a like an opening part. That's why uh, this geometric figure is called the phase envelope. Okay, it's like an envelope because there's only one opening. And here on the edges, the three edges, they uh they are closed. And this is the opening. So it's like an envelope. Inside the envelope, no stable single phase exists. Inside the points, in the points inside the envelope. Okay. So when the T and the temperature, pressure, and composition correspond to a point inside the envelope. Phase separation occurs. Okay. And they have compositions that fall on the lower and upper surface respectively. Okay, so in the 2D diagram, we will demonstrate what I mean. So if we have a point inside the envelope, the composition would be determined by um, tracing the edges of the vapor and liquid curves. Okay, next. So as I mentioned, we have the higher pressure in this upper region, and therefore the subcooled liquid region is above the upper surface, and the superheated vapor region lies below the surface. And inside the two surfaces, we have the coexistence of both liquid and vapor phases. So let's imagine a um, we start with a region from the subcooled region. Okay, and that is point F. Okay, let's try to trace what happens. At point F, it's in the subcooled region. Okay, and we try to reduce the pressure. Okay, let me zoom in. So this is point F. We try to reduce the pressure, and then as we reduce the pressure at constant temperature and composition along this vertical line, what happens when we touch the surface, the upper surface? So as we touch the upper surface, then the first bubble of the vapor, okay, so from point F to L, which is L is lies on the upper surface, we observe the first bubble of the vapor. Okay? And then so we call therefore this point L the bubble point. Okay? And as mentioned, it lies on the upper surface. And therefore, we can call this upper surface the bubble point surface. Next, we then okay, so um, this vapor bubble point is in equilibrium with the liquid at point V. Okay, so we trace the tie line, it's called the tie line to point V. And it's on the same, at the pressure, okay, same pressure and temperature. Okay, same pressure and temperature as with point L. Okay. It's difficult to imagine right now because this is in 3D, but later on, when we discuss this in 2D, it will be clearer. Okay? And therefore, line LV is a tie line. Okay? And if we reduce the pressure further along FG, and then the liquid vaporizes until the process is complete. So we now reach the uh, lower surface W. Okay, so the lower surface W is the um sa- lies on the saturated vapor surface, and because point W is where we find the last drops of liquid, okay, as they disappear, then point W is the dew point. And we call the lower surface the dew point surface. If we continue the reducing the pressure, then we reach the superheated vapor region. Okay, since this is a it's very complex to discuss and understand in 3 dimensions, um, we can actually cut the 3D diagram. We try to just isolate a surface. we isolate surfaces in order to discuss them in two dimensions. All right, so this is what we will discuss next. Okay, the PXY and TXY diagram. Okay, so how did we come up with the PXY and TXY diagram from the PTXY diagram? Okay, first is the PXY. So PXY is derived by PXY is derived by fixing the temperature. Okay, if we fix one temperature, let me zoom in. Okay, let's fix the temperature, say for example, at point E. The PXY diagram is like slicing the this graph like a cake, okay, along the points E, D, B, L, A. Okay, so if we like project this surface on a 2D diagram, then we get the PXY diagram. Okay, and therefore each of the curves right here would represent a different temperature. We have temperature TA, TB, and TD. How about the TXY diagram? Okay, how do we get the TXY diagram? It is derived by fixing a pressure. Okay, so let's um, investigate. Okay, so this time we cut it horizontally. So before in the PXY diagram, we cut it like a cake vertically, but now our slice is horizontal. Okay, so if we fix a pressure, say at K, then our slice would be, let's slice it from KJIH uh, LK. Okay, KJIHL. So the slice is horizontal. And that's how we get the TX diagram. Okay, so this is that surface projected in two dimensions. And we have different pressures, PA, PB, and PD. Okay, so that's how these PXY and TXY diagrams were projected from the 3D PTXY diagram. Okay, let's discuss the PXY and TXY diagram in detail. First, the PXY diagram. So on the y-axis, we have the pressure, and on the x-axis, we have the composition. For species 1, species 1 is our lighter species. And different regions here represent the different temperatures. For example, we have the temperature TA, so it represents one section uh, or one slice of the uh, PXY projected on a 2D plane. And we also have the temperatures TB and TD. So what can you observe uh, between the difference among the different temperatures? So for TA, the line or the curves extend, okay, to from the composition 0 to 1, but for TB and TB, it does not extend all the way through. Okay, so by the way, um, before we proceed, the solid curve right here represent the saturated liquid or bubble line, and the dotted line at the bottom is the saturated vapor or the dew line. How can we determine whether the bubble line is on top or the saturated or the dew line is at the bottom? Oh, just remember that at higher pressures, the phase is usually the liquid. So it's the liquid at the higher pressures, and at lower pressures, the phase is the vapor. So the bubble line or the saturated liquid line uh is the upper curve, while the dew line or saturated vapor line is the lower curve. Okay. So that's the opposite observation for the TXY diagram. Later we will discuss it in detail. So let's just first focus our attention on why um, some of these curves do not reach until the or do not span across the XY composition. As you can see here, uh, at temperatures TB and TD, the curve touches the critical temperature, and this is the critical temperature of the mixture. Okay, so C and this point C and C is somewhere along the curve right here. Okay, and the, as you can see also, there are horizontal lines spanning from the saturated liquid curve to the saturated vapor curve, and these are our tie lines. Okay, but for the temperatures TB and TD, uh, our the the tie line for the at the critical temperature is actually a point, so it's a tangent. So So it's where the horizontal line is a tangent. Okay, so why is this so? It's because tie lines connect the faces in equilibrium and are horizontal, and the tie line connecting identical faces. So that's the definition of our critical point, identical, where the point where the liquid and vapor are already identical. So therefore, um it must be the last line to cut the diagram, and therefore it's just a point. Okay, so if we draw a horizontal line, it will be a tangent line to the critical point. Okay, so these two temperatures lie between two pure species critical temperatures identified by C1 and C2, and that's the reason why they do not extend all the way across the diagram. Okay. Next, we discuss the TXY diagram. Again, this is generated by cutting a plane horizontally, okay, across the 3D figure. While the PX diagram, we cut a plane vertically. So for the TXY diagram, first we identify where is the saturated and liquid and vapor curves. In contrast with the PXY diagram, the saturated liquid occurs at the bottom or the lower curve, while the saturated vapor is on the upper curve. So how do we determine that? At low temperatures, usually the phase is the liquid, while the at higher temperature the phase is the vapor. All right. So as we increase the temperature, our substance becomes a vapor or gas. As we lower the temperature, it becomes a liquid. Okay, so it's the opposite observation with the PX diagram. Um, Next, what do we observe? We also observe that at different pressures, PA. So for PA, we notice that uh, our curve cuts across the diagram, but for PB and PD, it does not span all the way the diagram. And we also observe that for PB and PT, it touches the critical points. And there's a special case for pressure PD. It appears to be an island. It's not connected to either side of the diagram. And why is this so? It's because the pressure PD is above the critical pressures of both the pure species. And therefore, in the TXY diagram, it appears to be an island. Okay? All right. Okay, so the next slides actually just shows what I have discussed, but let's review again for the PXY diagram. The saturated liquid is the curve above the is above the area, and the saturated vapor is the one below. Okay, or we call the saturated the bubble line, and the saturated vapor the dew line. So how do we determine that? Keep in mind the fact that vapors form at high temperature and low pressure. So low pressure is the vapor. And the C here is the critical point of the mixture where the two phases become identical. Okay, so as I have mentioned, this is determined by cutting a plane vertically. Okay. So indicated by AE. So let's zoom in. A, E, D, B, L, A. Okay, so that's the vertical plane that cut across. And then for TXY, the saturated liquid or the bubble line appears at the bottom while the saturated vapor appears on top. And there's a C, the critical point of the mixture. Okay, so this point right here lies on this curve that is formed between C1 and C2, the critical points of the pure species. And how do we project this TXY diagram? By cutting a plane across, a horizontal plane. So it's, for example, it's the plane identified by KJIHLK. Okay? All right. So next the we have a link right here for a video on how to create the PXY and PX diagram. So at this point, I will stop the video, and we will include the link of this YouTube video um, okay, in the supplementary video materials. Okay, but before we stop, uh, let's review the regions or and lines and points on the PXY and TXY diagram. Okay. So we have for the PXY diagram, we have the subcooled liquid region on above. Okay. It is the area above. Okay. And for each of this curve right here, it represents a constant temperature. Okay. So for the PXY, a constant temperature. We have the px curve and the py curve. Px because remember x we designate that for the liquid, so it's the uh, one on top for the px diagram, and py y is for the vapor, so it's the curve right here at the bottom. So the line segment here represents the tie line. So if whenever we fall, our points would fall, our point would fall on inside the region uh, uh, of this curve, then we can determine the mole fraction of the um, species A in the liquid and the vapor phases by um, projecting the point towards the projecting the point horizontally towards either the liquid line and the vapor okay line as traced by the tie line. Okay. So for example, you have ZA, that's the composition, that's the point. So to get the mole fraction of A in the line, in the liquid, okay, line, the PX line, so you have to use the tie line to trace that, and you will get XA, which is the equilibrium uh composition of XA, and then for the vapor, it's on the opposite end. Okay. At the region below, you have the superheated region. On the other hand, if we have a TX diagram, for each of these curve, it represents a constant pressure. Okay, so it's the opposite. We have the superheated vapor region on top and the subcooled liquid at the bottom. And here we have two phases, okay, in the region, just like here we have the vapor and liquid equilibrium. So we also have the tie line, and here the our vapor is curve is on above, so that's the TY line, and the TX line is at the bottom. Okay. So if you have mole fraction Z A, to get the equilibrium mole fraction for the uh, liquid and vapor, we just simply use the tie line. Okay, so I will pause the or stop the video now, and we will just proceed um, in the next video.